Well, it's the midweek edition of the Morning Brief. It's hump day, and that means that the hardest part of the week is almost over. Welcome to your perfect morning starter right here on Channels Television. It's great to be here, and I am Bukola Koka. Hi, Jeffrey.
Bukola, good morning, and good morning to all of us. Welcome to the program. I'm Jeffrey Uzonga. We can tell you that we're counting every day. Today should be day 12 into that war on Iran, and what they call it, Israel-United States war on Iran. Yesterday was day 11, and one of the things that came out from yesterday was the fact that CNN had reported that Iran began laying mines in the Strait of Hormuz. What that simply means is we've made a threat that no ship, because it's what they call the oil transition, or where the fifth of the world's oil passes through in terms of a choke point. So whatever happens to the Strait of Hormuz, which is now one of the most popular names, it's always been, whenever these kind of things happen, said they don't want anyone to pass through that, any ship to pass through that point. I understand at some point transponders were turned off, but eventually they said they are laying mines just to deter anyone from daring them. That was what CNN was reporting, but not too long after that we saw, according to Trump, saying, "I am pleased to report that within the last few hours we have hit and completely destroyed 10 inactive mine-laying boats or ships, with more to follow." That's, you know, he on his Truth social that he always posts, and people pick it up. So Bukola, that's what's really going on. And I did put on my DP that anybody who thinks that this war is over is just, you don't understand how both prosecute war. One is great at asymmetric fights, and the other one is symmetric. So it's going to, eventually, there will be a need to sit down and have a conversation. So that's the update. Today is day 12. We don't know what's on the offer. The good news is that because of the rhetorics of maybe Donald Trump and his tweets and all the things he says, oil prices have tapered. Down, the way it was going, we're looking at 150, but now it's oscillating around 80-something, 90-something, depending on who is saying what and who is threatening what. So oil prices are reacting fundamentally to when Iran speaks, it reacts. When Donald Trump speaks, it reacts. Does react. So that's how it works.
And indeed, the U.S. president did give, you know, hope yesterday when he said that the war will soon be over. But he did add a proviso that he could hit Iran the hardest, you know, in the coming days. So it's, you know, dicey. But we saw a response, corresponding response back home when Dangote refinery reduced petroleum price to 1,175 naira per liter. But with the closure of or restriction of the Strait of Hormuz by Iran, we hope that, well, the worry is perhaps there could be another increase in the pump price of petrol back home. You know, when these things happen on the international community, there's, you know, a corresponding effect. Perhaps there could be another pump price of petrol. So maybe we're not out of the woods yet, with the aggression still, you know, coming from both sides of the war. And speaking of aggression, some of the things that we're hearing about the war from Iran is that they have doubled up on retaliatory strikes on Israel and U.S. targets in the UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait, and Iraq. That's according to state media from Iran. But let's get update from the Middle East now, and correspondent in the UAE, Mayowa Adegoke, joins us yet again on the show. Good morning, Mayowa. How are you doing today?
Morning. It's good to see you. I'm well and safe.
Well, so I just got that update right from the international media that there has been more strikes on the UAE and other Gulf states. What is the situation report that you have for us, especially about the strike on the UAE?
That's actually correct. Just this morning, there was a report that there was a vessel that was targeted off the coast of Ras Al Khaimah, which is an emirate in the UAE. It's about, say, an hour and a half, 2 hours tops from Dubai. And so that's a report that came in this morning and was reported by the UK Maritime Trade Organization, I believe. And we are keeping close tabs on this. Attacks have continued, you know, just a few hours ago again. Another government early morning came in that they are dealing with a fresh barrage of attacks from Iran. We're keeping our eyes on it. And you know, Trump saying, "No, this is going to be over soon." In my mind, I'm like, it's a fine person to speak, because it's not technically living it, right? We don't have drones flying over the United States or over the White House, but here in the UAE, we are living that reality quite visibly. And of course, you do know that with the restricted move of shipment on the Strait of Hormuz, it does impact everything. It impacts the move of vital goods, food, for instance. Just myself going to stock up on groceries a little bit yesterday. Some of my favorite items were out of stock, and they said, we haven't had these products come in for a number of different. It's because of the restriction of goods. So people are living the reality of this every day. And here in the UAE, the government yesterday, particularly the government of Dubai, began extended talks with business leaders in the city to sort of strategize and create a path forward in terms of making sure the economy remains resilient. One of the owners of one of the leading retail food stores here in the UAE just a couple of days ago had to fly in products from abroad. These are some of the measures business leaders take to make sure that business keeps running and people do not have to enter like survival mode. But yes, we are living the reality here in the UAE and across the region.
Yeah, Mario, this war, you only know when it starts. Well, Donald Trump can say all he has to say. He started a war that he thinks he can define when it ends. We all pray that those words come to pass, but we know it's not that easy. But we must thank you so much for always bringing us up to speed as to... But let's talk about, before I let you go, let's talk about, I know you mentioned it in passing, just in case I missed it. In terms of prices of goods and services, percentage increase, is it significant?
Well, depends on who you're talking to. In terms of significance of goods and services, it's not terrible. We have people who have reported, particularly, for instance, in the Nigerian community, people who are in the food business talking about they are going to the market and prices have doubled. Last week, yes, late last week, there were reports across social media of some prices tripling of certain goods. And the government is keeping close tabs on it. They've asked citizens to report any business or organization, particularly those who are dealing in food services, who have jacked up their prices. The government, of course, you remember that even during the national briefing that they had, they were adamant about keeping things, sane in terms of prices, protecting consumers. So the government is really particular about that. They did sort of fine, I think, about over 300 businesses just a few days ago who broke that rule. So government is doing its best to keep tabs, but is also asking citizens to report any business that is hiking prices unnecessarily.
Well, thank you so much. We'll always keep tab with you on this particular matter. Thank you so much. Because as you know, I look at the numbers when it comes to the oil prices, and that affects, that's the highest the cost component when it comes to petroleum product. And that's Strait of Hormuz, which we know is the most consequential, or one of the most consequential waterways as a choke point when it comes to oil transportation, affects literally everything. But what we've seen in the last 2 days, in fact, it was scary on Monday when prices went almost as high as $120 per barrel, both for Brent and for WTI at least. But later that evening, it tapered way down, and now we're seeing
around
reduction.
$90 per barrel.
Yeah, yesterday I think it ended about 88, and then the other one ended about 91 the other day. That's Brent, and then I think 80-something as well, around 80-something for WTI. So we're seeing oscillation in percentage increase to around 2 to 5, maybe maximum of 6%, rather than what we saw grow. But one of the things why I brought this up is the fact that there's something about leadership. I feel that the Nigerian leaders and African leaders, but I like to speak about Nigeria because this is where I live, this is where I work, this is where I hold government accountable. You always notice that whether it's saying something meaningful or not, but he's always engaging with the media or talking to the media, to the public through the media. That's Donald Trump. And even every American president, they're speaking to the media, even on Air Force One. They are speaking to the media at the White House. They are speaking to the media on the sideline of every event, or literally most of the events they attend. They are literally speaking to the media all the time. In fact, the other day I was watching, I think, CNN, and I saw that, is it Jake Tapper, one of those guys, was saying that he just got off the phone with President Trump, and it was giving more like highlights of his conversation. That he just a journalist who had a private conversation with the president as to, you know, he had a meeting, a phone conversation with Putin the other day. So I don't know what it is about our style of adoption that sometimes we don't adopt these kinds of levels of accountability. Since this thing has happened, I don't think the president has spoken, apart from maybe when people come to visit and all of that. I think it's something we need to adopt to make leadership a little bit more relatable. And that's what is adopted down the line, because presidents don't talk like that in Nigeria. Governors feel that, some of them feel too big to talk to the media, so it just goes down like that. And when you hold them accountable, some of them feel certain kind of way, but we really don't care. We're still going to hold you accountable anyway. It's our job. We don't care how you feel. It's just we're not going to ask you, what did you eat this morning? That's none of our business. Our business is policy, programs, issues around governance, and how you are bettering the life of the people that we've all voted you to better.
And speaking of accountability, Jeffrey, I was just thinking, Nigeria is a major crude oil supplier, right? You know, supposedly a major player in that sector. And we're doing a miserly 1.5 million barrels per day, between 1.4 and 1.6. Now,
just keep it at 1.4, maximum 1.5. I have the numbers. I always look at the numbers.
Well, yeah. So we're around that region, and Dangote Refinery, which is yes, crude oil, which is a domestic, you know, refiner of petrol, gets much of its, you know, crude oil for refining, you know, of its petrol from Nigeria. Now, if Nigeria could supply all of the crude oil that Dangote Refinery needs for its 650,000 capacity, you know, refinery, then perhaps, you know, would have a shock absorber, you know, in terms of the pump price of petrol will be removed from the vagaries of, you know, the pump price of petrol as a result of this war in between U.S. and Israel and Iran. Because we're not living up to expectation in that regard, we are having to rely on importation, significant importation of crude from the international community. Hence, we're not removed from these shocks, and Nigerians, you know, who have the commonwealth of crude oil, ironically, now have to pay more for petrol. You know, a reduction to 1,075 naira per litre of petrol is certainly no relief for Nigerians. Remember where we're coming from. In May 2023, when this administration took over, we're buying petrol for, you know, between 200 and 300 naira per litre. And so, you know, it's just an ironic situation. And you've been saying, hopefully we do not buy petrol for 1,500 naira per litre in the coming days. Those are questions that we'll be asking anyway from the experts who would, you know, come to bear on this conversation.
Absolutely.
It's just, you know, really sad.
Yeah, so let me give you the numbers. So when we do the 1.4 or 1 point whatever that we do, it's not everything that comes to us. The people who do the real work, the oil companies will take their cost oil, there are 4 oils, there's cost, there's royalty, there's profit, and there's a tax oil. We take royalty, we take profit, and we take tax, royalty, we take a bit of the 3. But they also need to take their cost component because of all of this. So maybe what comes to the NNPCL, maybe around 700 or so, 700,000, and Dangote, and they have to give it to the DCSO because you need to attend to the local refiners first. Give it to Dangote, which is not enough for him. And then, of course, you know, forward sales we've done, also those obligations are there. So if I heard them correctly, Dangote, maybe 60% of his oil, crude oil, comes from outside Nigeria. And then there are concerns around the grade of crude oil that he needs, because there is Escrovo, there is Brent, there are all kinds, these things, they are complicated stuff. So that's why we are not immune from all of this. For me,
but we could be.
Yeah,
I'm looking at the possibility.
We could be.
You know, if you removed crude oil theft,
it's a business.
If you removed crude oil theft from what Nigeria loses, you know, every day in terms of, you know, theft, perhaps, you know, added to what Nigeria sells to Dangote refinery based on the Naira for crude agreement, we could be removed significantly. Perhaps we would not have to buy petrol for this cost.
The experts will be able to tell us all of that, because whatever Naira is being spent as the equivalence is going to be the equivalence of the dollar, because it's priced in dollars in that sense. And then most of these things within the value chain is done in dollars. What can be done is maybe...
Those are the questions that we should be asking, because then the shipping component is off, the freight component is off, the transportation component...
No, they are still there, but this time it's not trans-ocean.
Yes, it's not trans-ocean, but within Nigeria.
So at the end of the day, for me, as a layman, the highest that can happen is to is to subsidize production so that consumption will be easier. But before we bring in our papers today, let's tell you that after that appeal court judgment that favored the pro-Wike group, because the Turaki group said they are appealing the judgment to the Supreme Court, Governor Makinde of Oyo, Governor Bala Mohammed, who are the two governors left in the PDP, and the chairman of the party of the Turaki group, and the BOT chairman of the Turaki group have all met. You see, PDP is stressing us in this.
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Met in Abuja, the nation's capital. The emergency meeting is taking place at took place at the lodge of the Bauchi State Governor, led by former Senate President Adolphus Wabara. The gathering has in attendance all of these guys, so including the former Deputy National Chairman, Chief Body Judge, and Professor Jerry Ghana, and several other persons.
Jeffrey, you know the reason I'm chuckling?
Tell me.
I'm just, projecting into the future and wondering if Governor Bala Mohammed, who is seated right there in that meeting now, will, in the next few months, be in the fold and the mode of the All Progressives Congress. Remember, prior to the defection of the governor of Plateau State, Caleb Mutwang, he was, very supportive, in fact, of the PDP during its Ibadan convention, according to reports that he offered all necessary support. I can't quite recall if he was present at that convention, but voila, within months, he became a member of the All Progressives Congress. And you always say that politicians can never be trusted. Even right there in the courtroom 2 days ago, when that judgment was given, you could see the national chairman of the other PDP group, the Makinde group, Saminu Turaki, exchanging pleasantries with Chief Samuel Ayamu right there in court, and you could never tell that there was a major contention between both of them over the leadership of the party. So, you just have to keep looking at politicians with a lot of reservations as far as what they say and they do in terms of politicking and leadership. Jeffrey.
It's heartbreaking to see that the party that ruled the country for 16 years is a shadow of itself. In fact, there has been war fighting. Yesterday, was it 2 days ago, on Politics Today, it was a Niamemobang and Jugundu Mohammed argument over a court case. And then the morning yesterday, we had Oregbo and Onoha literally fighting over this matter. In the afternoon,
and they were dressed alike.
I had George Turner and Hilebo literally fighting over the matter. So it's just a very sad situation. See, for me, I will continue to maintain my position. My position is that I would really like for us to have at least 2 to 3 very strong contending political parties, whether it's APC, PDP, PDP, Labour, APC, whatever, I don't care. 2 to 3 solid political parties. Because there was a time what APCs are enjoying now, PDP enjoyed it, and they felt like they were on top of the world. They even boasted. They'll be here for 60 years. I don't know whether they were thinking they forgot it's 16. They said they were 60 years they're going to run.
No. Late Chief Vincent Ogbulafo was quite categorical when he mentioned 60 years.
He said 60 years because you could see all the governors were with them, things were working for them, they had control and all of that. Now, just barely losing 2 or 3 elections, we have only 2 governors of that same party. Now, APC is feeling larger than life. Sometimes when we talk, they're not listening. And I'm telling you, quote me now, and I don't want to be correct. There are certain things I say, I know I'll be right, but I hope I'm not right. Well, when the APC now loses election, you see them.
We don't know when that is, by the way, Jeffrey.
No, I know they will lose election, but I don't know when.
When that is.
So forget about, that's how democracy works. You cannot be there forever. For right now, they have done a lot in trying to stabilize the party, bring a lot of structure. but I know politicians. It doesn't work like that for the Nigerian politicians. We have not built political party institutions. Subservience to power, self-preservation is at the core of their survival.
Add to that mix, strongman politics is also at the core.
Who has access to power that everybody rallies around.
Where those who are in subservience are unable to ask questions, but because they want to demonstrate loyalty such that they can keep their positions, they play to the gallery and play the ostrich as far as the real challenges of the economy and the state are concerned. So that's where we find ourselves currently. But Governor Seyi Makinde believes in miracles, and he wants to stand by that party until things turn around. Yeah, well, let's see how it goes.
Yeah, at the end of the day, before we jump to the papers, at the end of the day, I'm just concerned about the role the judiciary is playing in sustaining democracy. Sometimes I don't also blame the judiciary, but I also blame them sometimes, because if you don't come to their house, they are not going to adjudicate over matter. The Supreme Court, although it's a controversial contributory judgment between the Rivers State House of Assembly and the governor of Rivers State in whatever happened then, Justice Chioma Nwosiheme quoted two judgments in the past of the Supreme Court saying that the only reason political parties can come to court has to do with maybe nomination of candidates, primaries and all of that, as captured in the previous acts in Section 84, subsection 13 and 14, but this particular one, 88, subsection 2 and 3, it said issues around membership and leadership. This court has it's not justiciable, maybe stare decisis in that case. But we see lower courts, trial courts, we see
intervening in such cases.
Assuming jurisdiction over this issue. So sometimes I'm even confused about the jurisprudence of our practice here in Nigeria. Maybe my Leonard Egbons and Leonard Siggs, who I have access to, will be able to explain to me what this means, but it's very confusing.
You forget too soon, Jeffrey. Leonard colleague Osoha yesterday
I'm not their Leonard colleague. They are
was trying to intervene in that matter. But we have that conversation coming through maybe subsequently in the week. Before we take papers, President Bola Tinubu has asked the Senate to screen and confirm Mr. Taiwo Oyedele as Minister of State for Finance to replace Doris Uzoka Anite. The president made the request through a letter read on the floor of the Senate on Tuesday by the Senate President Godswill Akpabio during plenary following a 3-week recess for the budget defense exercise. Of course, the request was subsequently referred to the Committee of the Whole for further legislative action. Don't forget also that President Tinubu requested confirmation of Magnus Abbey as chairman of the Nigeria Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, NUPRC, alongside 2 other commissions. And I believe that the president also presented for consideration the budget of the FCT before the Senate. So we'll be keeping our eyes on those stories for you as they develop. And of course, perhaps they could form talking points in the coming days. But we'll take a moment now. When we return, it'll be time to go through the big stories on the front pages. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. Let's talk about what's been playing out so far. Some we've already highlighted it. Maybe we just had 2 or 3 statements to it. But let's go to this Nigeria. Middle East crisis, prolonged war to hit economy hard. FG warns we're monitoring development to safeguard economic stability. That's credited to Wale Edun, the Minister of Finance or Coordinating Minister of the Economy. Nigeria may face rising smuggling activities amid Iran tensions. That's coming from the experts. So we're looking at all of this. It's just, everybody's just attentive to the volatility that comes with issues around instability in the Gulf or the Gulf region. Bukola, I was listening to someone saying that whenever you have a Republican president, there are 3 things you will likely expect. And this is because their ideologies are consistent. The characters of the leaders each time differs, but they align. I said they will cut benefits for the poor, they will cut taxes for the rich, and then they will drop bombs in the Middle East.
Okay.
So that's what the person said. So when you have a very impulsive leader like Donald Trump, we're going to be literally, this is 4 years of sprints. 4 years is supposed to be a marathon by any standard of imagination. But Trump is an uneasy guy. He's always trying to do something. He's always trying to move somewhere. And now he started his war because he don't want nukes to be, you know, on all of this. But for us, how it bothers us is that it's a two-edged sword.
You know, and it contrasts with his positioning as, you know, a man of peace and search of peace
He didn't
in the war.
that.
You know, he boasted about, you know, restoring peace between Rwanda and Congo.
He said he stopped 8 wars.
Yeah, I doubt
and
that.
Started the mother of all
there's
wars.
been peace in that region.
He stopped 8 wars and started the mother of all wars because this is getting to another level altogether. But
many countries are suffering for it at this particular point in time. If Nigeria is buying petrol at this price, we wonder, you know, especially for those other countries that are not oil producing in any capacity, that are heavily dependent on importation of petrol, how much will they be buying petrol at this particular point in time?
The federal government,
unless there are subsidies in other countries as far as that oil sector is concerned.
I will want to believe that the federal government is a responsible government to be able to know as what time to step in. I don't think the President Bola Tinubu, I don't want to believe he will watch this go, maybe if he goes further down south, he will just watch and keep quiet. No, because even our harmonization of our currency is called a managed float. At some point, you have to look at when you have to intervene. So although the sector is purely deregulated, there are laws like the PIA governing that sector. But because we have the privilege of having the resource and the refining capacity, I want to believe that there may be some form of incentivization if it becomes difficult. But what is expected in a properly deregulated system is that if it goes all the way to 2,000, we'll bear. If it comes all the way to 200, we enjoy. That's how it works. But the social impact
but
is going to
will it ever come to 200?
I don't know. The social social impact is going to be too catastrophic, especially for transportation, inflation, and all of that. They've done quite well with tapering the numbers. This is going to just push it further up. But the story at the top of this Nigeria, Bukola, is of attention. Senate, APC swells to 81 as Ipalibo Banigo, that's the former deputy governor of Rivers State. I don't know what she waited for. Defects, PDP shrinks to 17. So you see, supermajority. So let's be clear on how this works. This is pure democracy. So the reason I had to say this is pure democracy is to the fact that let's know that with the way the National Assembly is constituted, if the president wants anything done, no matter how we agitate, and he needs the nod of the National Assembly,
he gets it.
It will take significant pressure for the Senate and the House of Reps not to pass it.
But Jeffrey, I gave you the answer. He gets it.
He gets it. Yeah, I'm just saying. That's what I'm saying. I put it, since they like provisos, let me add the proviso. It will take significant pressure from the Nigerian people to be able to change such decision. So now, my senator is a member of the APC. I think my reps, so he was in PDP, should be a member of the APC now, and all of that. So is to lobby them if you want anything done and say, look, I know you like to be a party man, but this decision by the government is unreasonable and maybe irresponsible. Can you vote against it? If they have the guts, they will. If they don't,
and you know, the Senate president's positioning from yesterday still has a lot more work to do to convince us. You know, he was saying that the social media magnifies the problem, but the Senate treats the substance of the problem, that the Senate is the floor of real debate. You know, but hey, these are elected representatives of the Nigerian people. As far as ease is concerned, or the ideal atmosphere for their dreams and aspirations to thrive and, you know, bring about results, that is not the case right now in the country. It's either we're talking about kidnapping, we're talking about insecurity, or we're talking about hunger, poverty, starvation in some cases. How many millions of Nigerians do we currently have in internally displaced persons camp? So we expect more, you know, from elected representatives and those at the executive level currently. And it goes to buttress the point that you have made, that amid all of this, there is no communication from the president, neither is there any communication. I wonder if elected representatives
yesterday he said,
are holding meetings with their constituents as far as the deepening hardship in the land is concerned. If they are, we should be getting feedback from, what they're doing to ease the hardship.
The president, as I said, our leaders, they talk when they want. They don't engage. The only thing I heard him during the breaking of the fast was just talk about assuring that, look, this will be sorted.
The president did say that the economy has turned the corner. But Jeffrey, the evidence, says all it has to say about the president's position as far as that is concerned. But well, let's go to the next paper, and The Guardian is next this morning. It leads with politics. Party politics, APC's 31 of 36 states, narrow options, multi-party contest in 2027. And you see the map there. And this is mischievous. You see, Mr. President.
It's not mischievous, it's facts. This is facts in front of you. This is facts.
Well, it makes it look like Mr. President is responsible for the 31 of the 36 states. Well, this is coming from The Guardian, not from me, so it's left for you to decide. So you see
is this party now?
It's this party, the All Progressives Congress. But who's responsible for 31 out of 36 states, Jeffrey?
Well, I don't know. I know that what is being said is that the APC has done either of any of the next things I'll mention. It's either they have bullied the people into their party or blackmailed them into their party or given them money to join their party. Or it could be that the governors in the PDP, they just admire the president and they feel that they can work with him, or the instability in their own party is even giving them the reason not to stay anymore. So choose which you believe. I know what I believe. Okay.
What do you believe? But on the front page of The Guardian, if you look at that map, the states colored in white on the map are states, in other political parties. And so you have Bauchi up north there, PDP. You have Oyo. Oyo is Accord. No, Oshu is Accord, yes. Rather. Then you have Oyo, PDP. You have Anambra,
just make it easy
and
for
you
yourself.
have Abia, LP.
Just make it easy. There's Labour, there's ABGA, there's Accord, and then there's 2 PDP. The rest is APC.
Precisely.
So just
the rest is APC.
Save yourself the trouble.
But what will 2027 look like? And I want to be frank in, my reflection on this. Without the element of vote buying in 2027, what would the elections look like? Would the DNA, as Jeffrey always says, of the people, would it reflect the DNA of the governors who have defected, or would it be an independent DNA that reflects the will of the people? So that's left for you to decide. That's it from, there are other stories on the front page of The Guardian newspaper. You see there, PDP Caretaker Committee celebrates appeal court verdict validation. Of course, the other National Working Committee led by Abdurrahman Saminu Turaki also is insisting that that judgment favors them. And then there's this one, FG, yes, right under the big picture on the front page of The Guardian newspaper. FG rolls out CNG kits as petrol, diesel spending nears 3 trillion naira in March. And what this says to me, Jeffrey, is this is another reactionary government intervention coming right amid petrol reaching 1,000 plus naira per litre. We've always talked about how the increase in the pump price of petrol from 2023, has become an albatross for Nigerians rather than any benefit, of the reforms of this administration. And so what, as that presidential committee on CNG, what has it been doing prior to this time? So this appears to be reactionary. We still do not have that domestic capacity for CNG nationwide, with a few of those stations spread across different regions of the country, always, having long queues, of people who want to buy CNG. So this is reactionary. There is a real need amid all of this. Who knows whether we're going to be buying petrol at 1,500 naira per litre. So we need more action, more intentionality in this type of intervention. Jeffrey?
The CNG was a good initiative, but this is classic failure from the Bola Tinubu presidency. Good idea, but poorly executed. Because if the CNG had succeeded, the pressure we're feeling with the PMS would have been way less. Because you're not just talking about not buying element of fossil fuel, talking about environmental conservation and preservation in that sense, clean energy. But this has actually shown that it was a good idea that was terribly and poorly implemented by the leadership. Whoever it puts in charge, I think they should be, the president should rethink the leadership of whoever is in charge.
And indeed, there were some distribution of CNG buses
as far
nationwide.
As I hope that they give them enough resources, because sometimes when we are critical, we need to be fair. Sometimes you put people in charge, you empower them enough to do the work. Those are two different things altogether. If they had a budget, if they had things they earmarked and they requested that for us to achieve this within so time, please, we need this. If you didn't give them, then there's no point. You are the one that failed, not them, in that sense. So I hope they were, I don't know what the issue was. Were they not properly empowered? But it was just government not committed through and through. And adaptation issues as well. You know, there's hesitancy in adapting to that form of transportation or using that form of energy.
No, but Jeffrey, even for the CNG buses that were distributed nationwide, you know, that's part of the problem. We should also be doing a follow-up to see whether those buses are being
some are in use. Some are in use. Yes. I've seen some that are in use.
And if they're not, is it also another challenge?
Whether they're adequate is another thing.
Inadequate availability, rather, of the CNG product itself in stations nationwide. And you know, we still do not have enough to cater to the needs of Nigerians, because those CNG stations are just a few in some regions of the country. Okay. There's no national spread yet.
Let's go to Nigerian Tribune. Nigerian Tribune, this is very heartbreaking. Kidnapping. Protest in Ondo, Oyo, 2 dead, 3 abducted. As Ayedatiwa vows crack down on kidnappers, protesters cause gridlock on Ibadan-Oyo Road. Police query DPO, detain inspector over protest in Oyo community. Arrest 2 Nigerian nationals, 30 other suspected bandits in Kwara. Afenifere expresses concern over rising cases of kidnapping, banditry in the southwest. I don't think there's anything to add. You know, these are facts. You can't debate, you can't argue. Sometimes when I see government people trying to argue over these things, it's very heartbreaking. And sometimes I just pity them, because something you just acknowledge the failure and promise to do. 2 Nigerians, I should say. 2 Nigerians, not Nigerians, 2 Nigerians, my apologies. Sometimes you don't argue with these facts. You just acknowledge it and tell us what you need to do to ensure that this doesn't happen again. You know, because I think in 2014, the issue of insecurity was a bit measured. But boom, towards the end of it, and in 2025, it took another scale and is not coming down. So all that threats or those tough talk by the president. Remember when the president was presenting the budget, when he spoke very loudly and said, this nonsense will stop. This is me using my words, but that is a measure of the expression he gave that, look, we're not going to tolerate this. In fact, his Minister of Information, who I haven't seen talk for a while now, I don't know what's going on, Mr. Idris, the Honorable Minister, came and doubled down and said, look, in case you're not clear on what the president was saying, if we see you bear arms and you're not security agency, you're an enemy of the state, and what meets such people will meet you. But it looks like that was just political talk, because it's gotten worse and worse by the day. We hope that this stops as soon as possible. But maybe we'll take a break now so that we can get to that conversation around the PMS price, which is what a lot of Nigerians are concerned about. How much are you buying fuel? How much are you buying diesel? A producer, Nollywood producer, Kuna Falanya, the other day says he spent 11 million for diesel or something in his facility. So what is it for you? I don't have all the answers. The experts will tell you. Kelvin Emmanuel is an energy expert. Billy Gley Harris is going to join us. He's the president of Petron in just a moment. Stay with us.
Welcome back. And so let's get to that very important conversation about the pump price of petrol against the backdrop of the war between U.S., Israel and Iran, especially following Iran's resolve to block the Strait of Hormuz and President Trump's response, you know, that huge threat from the President of the United States of America, where he said, block that strait, face death, fire, and fury. Of course, the implications are clear. That means that the war may not be ending anytime soon, especially because of the contradicting statements that we're hearing. And so how much of that will impact on the pump price of petrol from this time until, when there is a definite resolve of the international community, to come to the negotiation table? Let's have this conversation now. And joining us is Mr. Kelvin Emmanuel, economist and oil and gas expert. He joins us from our Abuja studio. We also have Mr. Billy Gillis-Harry, president of Petren. Okay, Mr. Harris is also joining us from our Abuja studio. Gentlemen, thank you and welcome to the Morning Brief.
Thank you so much for having us, sir.
Good morning, Bukola. Thank you for having me.
I'm starting with you, Mr. Emmanuel, and I'm, pretty much spoiled for choice here. Jeffrey and I began the conversation moments ago. On the one hand, the Strait of Hormuz is supposed to be managed between Iran and Oman because it runs between both countries. So I wonder what influence Oman has in this conversation. That's on the one hand. But more importantly, talk to us about the measure of crude oil that Dangote sources from the international community as against the measure that it buys from home, and how much impact that has on the pump price of petrol.
Bukola, thank you so much for having me. Good morning to you, Bukola and Geoff in Lagos. Always a privilege to be here. So the facts on the ground are the Straits of Hormuz, like you know, is a small aperture that links between Iran, southern Iran, and northern, actually UAE on one side and Oman on the other side. And it has a throughput of anywhere between 20 and 22 million barrels of crude, which is about a fifth of global daily consumption. And you have crude coming from Kuwait, from Bahrain, from Saudi, from Iraq, from Iran itself, from the UAE, that goes through the Straits of Hormuz. And about 80% of the crude that goes from Iran through that aperture actually goes to Southeast Asia, mostly China. China is the major buyer of Iranian crude, despite the fact that Iran has been under sanction. And GCPOA plus P5+1 in 2015 failed after Trump became president because, U.S. lawmakers, especially Republicans, said that one of the conditions on which that GCPOA was signed was that about $1.7 billion that was in the U.S. Defense Military Fund was going to be returned in cash to Iran. And if you go back in time, you notice that in the 70s, I think 70s, the Shah of Iran, Pahlavi, had sent $400 million to the U.S. to buy military artillery. When he was overthrown and Ayatollah Khamenei, later Ayatollah Khamenei became the premier of Iran, and Iran was declared an Islamic state, despite the fact that it was a secular state. That money was seized by the U.S. government and it was placed in a defense military fund that was interest-bearing. And it accumulated $1.3 billion in interest. So, they were concerned that the return of that money to Iran was going to provide cash they needed to build uranium into a nuclear bomb through nuclear fission. So Oman doesn't really have leverage because Iran has basically, through the Quds forces, the Iranian Revolutionary Guards, built a naval command. They've built kamikaze drones, very sophisticated unmanned aerial vehicles. They funded militias, Hezbollah, Hamas, and other militias that you see around Africa over time. And, one of the jokers that Iran has in this now is these UAVs that can be launched from anywhere in the Middle East and not necessarily originate from Iran. And now the latest one, because the market buys on rumor and sells on the news, the latest one is that Iran is threatening that they're going to deploy naval mines that gets triggered when it actually recognizes the metal of a ship, or the ship touches the mine, or it recognizes a change in water pressure because a ship is incoming. And the market is basically reacting to that rumor that is going to happen. And the fact also that yesterday the U.S. Energy Secretary had tweeted that, a U.S. naval vessel escorted a commercial ship carrying crude oil through the Strait of Hormuz and immediately deleted that tweet, and the U.S. government denied that this happened. As created confusion in the market because the market buys on rumor and they sells on the news. And then on the issue of the impact on Dangote refinery and how much crude that he actually sources, where he sources it from. He sources crude from Brazil, sources crude from the US, sources some crude, very minimal volume. I think he sources less than 1 million barrels around West Africa, Senegal, and the likes of them. Dangote actually sources less than 50% of his crude in Nigeria. I'm aware that for the month of March, NNPC has 6 cargoes benchmarked to US dollar of about 5.7 million barrels for the month of March, because an average cargo, an LCC, is about 950,000 barrels, that is going to the refinery. But he needs about 18 million barrels on a monthly basis, so an average of about 600,000 barrels a day. So, and the cost of freight, because of this war, the premium it has added for vessels, hull and machinery, insurance, P&I, protection and indemnity, war risk insurance, the cost of freight for a typical Panamax vessel taking crude of about 1 million barrels across the the Atlantic, from Northern Atlantic, from maybe Brazil or the US to Lagos, it's gone from about $37,000, $40,000 a day to about $80,000 a day. And so it means that if you're sailing for about 20 days, which is the time it averagely takes across the Atlantic, it's going to cost you between 80,000 times 20 days, that's about $1.6 million. That's minus what you have to pay to NIMASA and NPA as levies. So these are the premiums. Then you also have the fact that the crude that is sources in Nigeria, API above 30 degrees, lower viscosity, he has to pay an extra premium on it because the operators don't sell the crude directly, which is a contravention to sections 109 of the PIA. They go through third-party traders and they add commissions on a typical, and this is a conversation we've had severally. I've mentioned this severally. On Bonga crude, the Bonga is, the field that started producing in 2006, does more than 200,000 barrels. It's paying as high as $6.20 per barrel as an extra third-party premium that is not taxed by the Nigerian government. So these are the issues that, the government wants to begin to look at and say that, look, you're supplying Dangote crude. Are you supplying him in Naira? Are you supplying him at a discount to market? No. If you're supplying him in Naira, the cargoes you're supplying him in Naira, which is about maybe 30% of what he needs to refine daily, right, is benchmarked at the current exchange rates. And he's paying an additional premium on that crude. And he has to include that in his cracking margins and refiner's premium. So these are the issues that we have to begin to talk about as we address the risk of an increase in price. Price anywhere around $88 a barrel. Arab Black and Russian Urals are trading at a $12 premium to Brent, dated Brent. So we have to begin to talk about these issues, which we've gone on and on for about 2 years. As we begin to address the risk of an increase in price due to the escalation. In fact, freight rates in the Middle East right now is about $500,000 per day to rent a vessel. So he's not even taking crude from the typical, one of the sources of his crude has been Basra. Basra has 3 major fields in Rumaila, in West Kano, and in Manu. They produce about 2.8 million barrels. And the undersea pipeline that takes crude from Saudi Arabia to the Red Sea in Egypt, about 5 million barrels, and then from Iraq to the Red Sea, about 1.8 million barrels. They have throughput of only 6.8 million barrels. The Middle East typically does anywhere around 20 million barrels a day. So, if he's not able to source crude in Iraq and he has to source crude from all these other markets in the world, the freight rates has gone up. It affects his margins. The crude that he buys in Nigeria is paying at the benchmark. The ones he's buying from the commercial operators is paying in US dollars, and he's paying an extra premium that he normally doesn't pay when he sources for crude internationally. So we have to begin to interrogate all these specifics and dynamics and how it has impacted on the fact that petrol prices as at last night is 71 cents per litre, which is still very low compared to the fact that in the UK, a litre of petrol is currently trading at $1.82. In the US, it's trading at $1.35 a litre.
All right, all right. Those are critical questions that we must ask, especially if we, do the calculation and see what $1, plus, translates into naira against the backdrop of what Nigerians are buying, petrol for. But let's come to Mr. Billy Gillis-Harry, who is a major player in the market. And reports say that, Dangote may have captured well more than 50% of the domestic petrol market. Talk to us about the pricing, both from Dangote and, what it should vary based on what other marketers are sourcing if they're still importing.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. And I will say first, let us be grateful to God and also to Alhaji Aliko Dangote for taking the investment in foresight to reality by establishing the Dangote refinery. I don't know what we'll be doing today in Nigeria if we did not have that facility operating. So the question you've asked is very direct. Where do we source our product from? What is our concern about price? Right now, we source all of our products from Dangote. Whether we are going to buy it through the depots, which have not started selling to us in their various depots, which we're expecting that with effective stakeholder collaboration, that the Dangote's refinery's objective will be met. Yeah, if Dangote has to have 100% of the domestic retail outlets, it's only for the benefit of Nigeria. So I don't see what is the difficulty there. While we were talking about this a couple of months ago, we indeed had to have other sources to be able to ensure that we have petroleum products in our retail outlets. But today, that is not the case, and especially with the war raging in the Mid-Eastern part of the world, that imports completely may not even happen, until there is some kind of, resolve in this matter. So we are taking our products from Dangote, and whether it's 50% or 100%, for every retailer, our concern will be just to meet our objective to supply products, refined products to end users, ensure that our services grow the economy on a daily basis by providing those services that are very critical. And that's where we are. As for pricing, we are very much aware that the vagaries of the situation of the market will determine that, and we have always said that the prices will never be static. It will be up, to be down, to be down, to be up, and that is what we should be expecting, today and even in the coming days. Hopefully, the example of what Dangote has done yesterday to reduce his price by 100 naira, I don't have any empirical reason why, or economic reason why he did that, but I believe that there must be some very fundamental changes in the dynamics of production for him to have made that deduction, and we're happy about that. Hopefully that will reflect in the pumps as soon as we start buying this product from him and lifting. As of today, we have tankers that need to be serviced, at the depot, and we are hoping that we should be able to start to get products to our retail outlets.
Yeah, Mr. Kevin, let me come to you. And I'm going to ask, the way maybe a layman would want to ask. Now, according to what we've seen and reported, and even Mr. Gillis-Harry has mentioned the fact that this is not the first time Aliko Dangote, the Dangote refinery, has said they are reducing price out of patriotism and all of that. For me, and maybe a lot of Nigerians, what has to, because volatility is constant, depending on what is playing out where. For now, it's the Middle East, because a fifth of the world's oil movement is being disrupted because of that conflict in Iran. You cannot predict the future. The best thing you can do is to have a scenario planning. And I want to believe that the Nigerian people who are blessed with this oil are now blessed with an investment that refines this oil, maybe more coming on stream, will be able to have some form of relief in terms of security, in terms of energy security. Now, he's done his own part, according to him, to lower price. You've talked about a breach of the PIA in terms of the third-party selling of the crude. What can the government do at times like this? So, I don't know whether using the word drastic would be appropriate, but some measure of reduction of or incentivizing production so that consumption is a bit cheaper for the ordinary Nigerian person who buys diesel and PMS at fuel station.
Incentivizing is the right word.
That's what Mr. Emmanuel, Mr. Gillis.
Focus. Yes, I'm with you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I said incentivizing is the right word because that's what we...
Mr. Gillis, if you can hear me, the question is actually for Kelvin. Kelvin, did you hear the question?
Oh, okay.
Geoff, thank you very much. I heard the question. So it's important for us to realize that the government of Nigeria is not providing any special incentive. In fact, there was no scenario planning for a crisis. You know, just permit me, back in time when Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, who is now DG of WTO, and Dr. Olusegun Adanga formed the Nigerian Sovereign Wealth Fund, NSI. I remember meetings 2010, 2011. They structured it around three major pillars: Future Generation Fund, Infrastructure Fund, and Stability Fund. For times like this, there's a reason why countries have sovereign wealth funds. Right? They have sovereign wealth funds because in times like this, it provides buffer. Okay? When the petrol subsidy was removed in 2023, which was a good move, by the way, because the government was close to bankruptcy and the president something had to give. The idea was to create fair market pricing, you know, and remove under recovery, which was riddled by a lot of corruption. The government was losing about maybe 5 trillion naira to waste on a yearly basis, bridging funds that could not be accounted for, inflation of daily consumption volumes. Bridging fund did not meet up with actual daily consumption volumes. They had what they call the domestic crude intervention stock that was equivalent to the total installed capacity of the government-owned refineries, 445,000 barrels per day. And when the PIA was signed in August 2021, Sections 109 said that they will provide like a domestic crude supply obligation to refiners ahead of the beginning of a refinery, which is a Dangote refinery, to like guarantee supply to Nigerian refiners, right? That was the idea. But today, Dangote is buying at market prices to Platts and is paying an extra premium, okay? Number two, the 312,000 barrels the government was using as crude oil swap for petrol subsidy. After subsidy was removed, that 312,000 barrels was supposed to come back to the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Nigerian government. Between 2023 and today, the Nigerian government has not come out to tell Nigerians where that 312,000 barrels of crude oil goes to daily. Because I can tell you, Geoff, that 312,000 barrels that form the domestic crude intervention stock does not go to the Consolidated Revenue Fund. So in times like this, for example, where your NSIA is not liquid enough to provide a buffer for Nigerians, right? That 312,000 barrels, the National Economic Council can sit down and say, okay, times are tough. We have the BVN and NIM of the most vulnerable, the most vulnerable Nigeria. Let's pick 40 million out of 220 million, even if we've not had population census in 20 years. We have their BVN, we have their NIN. Can we credit them directly? Because we have their data as government. Can we credit them directly monthly or weekly to enable them to cushion the impact of petrol prices? This is not you providing a subsidy through a market structure. This is you providing a subsidy as a direct cash transfer to the 40 million most vulnerable Nigerians to cushion the impact of the rise in petrol prices. And that crude intervention stock, that 312,000 barrels the government, you know, was using for crude oil swap as subsidy for under recovery, that is no longer in existence. This is the use for it. So the question I have for the president and his economic team this morning is, where is the 312,000 barrels of crude that was used as subsidy that is not necessarily going to the consolidated revenue fund? Why are you not using that to alleviate or ameliorate the suffering of Nigerians at this time? Because Dangote is a private business. He's not going to assume the role of government and provide subsidy for Nigerians. He has shareholders who invested. He has dollar debts. He has to pay down his debt. He has to make a profit. It's not a social enterprise. It's a business. If the price of crude oil changes in the international market, look, the price of calculating PMS is very simple. It's the price per metric ton benchmark to Platts because it's buying crude oil in dollars, right? Multiplied by Nigeria's exchange rates, divided by the number of liters in 1 metric ton of petrol, depending on the density of the petrol, right? So if you cannot control the price of crude oil, then you can manage your exchange rate. And Geoff, we were witness here when a few weeks ago, the vice president was speaking at an event and he said that the government is concerned about allowing the naira to appreciate significantly because it might affect real rates for FPI investors who are in Nigeria. It might affect receipts to FAC because customs has to adjust its exchange rate. It might affect net export proceeds from people who export. Why are you concerned about naira appreciating when in situations like this, for example, your exchange rate is a significant denominator in calculating the price of PMS, which will accelerate inflation? Why are you concerned about? Why are you not allowing the naira to float? The naira appreciated to about 1,340 naira, and the government is coming out to tell you that it's concerned about the naira appreciating. The Nigerian government cannot control the price of crude oil. Even the US government cannot, on its own, unilaterally control the price of crude oil. What leverage do you have? You have the leverage of your exchange rates. So if you're saying you're not allowing the exchange rate to float freely and find its forward curve because you're concerned about FAC receipts, right? Then we have a problem, Geoff. So these are the questions that the government needs to answer. Unfortunately, the government does not plan because it doesn't do, in times of abundance, the government sits down and it makes merry. It doesn't realize that there will be lean days. It's not done any scenario planning for a crisis. This stress test that we've had from this war, which is unprecedented and unplanned, it's like the final validation we need to realize that the Dangote refinery is a miracle and it came at the right time, because if there was no Dangote refinery, we will be all glued to TV and watching for the next vessel that will arrive in Nigeria with petrol to guarantee our supply of petroleum products.
Mr. Emmanuel,
for petrol all over the country.
Mr. Emmanuel, I wonder if I can ask you this question, but I'll take the risk. How can we compel government to answer these questions, these critical questions that you have raised? Because amid all of this, the increasing pump price of petrol, Mr. President, who is supposed to be the substantive Minister of Petroleum, is silent. The Minister of State for Petroleum is silent. The relevant heads of agencies, when you can talk about the NMDPRA, the NUPRC, nobody is talking to Nigerians. So how can we secure accountability? And if you asked, if we could talk to the labor leaders as well, the NLC, the TUC, well, there's a fatigue as far as that is concerned. There's even a trust deficit between Nigerians and the labor leaders.
Bukola, your guess is as good as mine. Like, the Nigerians need to ask their government questions, ask their elected representatives at National Assembly questions. National Assembly is supposed to be the arm that holds the executive to ransom and interrogate them on these issues. Unfortunately, I'm not seeing the pressure from National Assembly on the executive arm of government. Why are they not answering the questions on the domestic crude intervention stock that was used as crude oil swap? 312,000 barrels. I've said this over and over again over the last 18 months. 312,000 barrels of crude oil. Where does it go to? Where in the consolidated revenue fund is that money? Why is the government not able to fund this project? Why are you not able to provide a temporary direct transfer of cash as subsidy to the 40 million most vulnerable Nigerians? Why is Dangote buying crude oil in dollars or benchmark to dollars and having to pay a $3 to $6 premium additionally? And with all the charges that comes with bringing crude oil from Niger Delta to the refinery in Lagos? These are the questions that the government needs to answer. Why is the government not, setting up like a gazette that will provide guidelines for operators on willing buyer, willing seller, so that they will not inflate the cost of third-party premiums? Why are the traders, why are the international traders that buy crude from Nigerian commercial operators not paying taxes on that crude that they trade to the Nigerian government? Your guess is as good as mine. They are watching the interview. Why are they not telling Nigerians the truth or answering their questions?
Mr. Gillis-Harry, I'd like you to respond to the same question, especially because when you warned recently about the potential increase in the pump price of petrol amid this war, you called on the NNPCL GMD to strengthen refining capacity. But we all know the state of the refineries, the local refineries. So it's important that you also weigh in on this particular concern.
Well, for us, what is needing to be done is rise up to the occasion. We're in a season of stress, and these challenges by themselves should be reason for our innovativeness and our passionate patriotism of Nigeria to rise up. So whether you are a legislator, you are in the executive arm, or you are a business leader such as NNPC, you need to rise up. For instance, if we had at least the 2 refineries in Port Harcourt working, it would have helped what Dangote refinery is doing today. We gave all the credits to NNPC at the time, and then only to be turned around to be told that, oh, they're operating, but they cannot, it's not commercially viable. Now that cliche should not even be heard at all by Nigerians, after we have spent so much money to fix all of these refineries. So we have made that call, and we believe that both the government and NNPC saw it, and they're hearing it, and they know that that is what the market, the last, the most critical last mile of the industry, is looking at. Because we want to be sure that our retail outlets are wet, and the only way that can be done is that we have refined products. And that's why we're very grateful to the Dangote dream, that today we can have this refinery operating and guaranteeing at least availability of product. For affordability, we'll be talking about that as the days go on, looking out for how government itself should intervene. And in our opinion, the first step to do is to start a massive emergency process to gasify our energy source. We had a very, very, very good gas master plan that we didn't follow. We had right now we have the PCNG that is working, and we should have that now working more collaboratively. For instance, petrol stations are willing to provide our forecourts, for the establishment of daughter stations, and ensure that we can be able to use that as alternative energy. That would have reduced the pressure on the use of petrol, and that would also be what should account for our sustainability. And we don't need to import gas. We have gas that we're flaring, so the government should take a very strong step to turn that flared gas into assets that can be able to. And we've been talking about this probably for decades, years. We are seeing it, but we need to start working on it. So that's why we think that in this season, this is a season of innovation, season of thinking out of the box and doing exactly what can be done to ameliorate the situation. The war is raging. Yesterday we were expecting that there'll be diplomatic efforts to be able to assuage it. Today we had a different body language, and so we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And our predictions are always correct because we're aware that there has to be a replacement cost for Dangote's operations, and those replacement costs will only come from sales. They're going to come by miracles or by magic. So we understand the pricing template that is put in. The other thing we ask is let these changes also be communicated to us in a way that we can be able to accommodate it. Because once the changes come, if they are high, then we as retail outlets will start looking for funds to go and make those purchases. But if we have some kind of communication that makes us to understand this is going to happen, it will help us ahead of time to serve Nigerians better. But by and large, we are very grateful that we have Aliko Dangote in Nigeria and has the courage to make that risk.
Bukola, and I was going to mention to you, Bukola. Okay. Bukola, I was going to mention to you.
You have 60 seconds for that, Mr. Emmanuel.
Other sensible countries in the world that, drills crude and then refines petroleum products, they have a domestic crude intervention stock. Saudi Arabia has it. The U.S. has a strategic petroleum reserve. They hold about 700 million barrels of crude at every given time, right? I've always said in the last 6 or 7 months that Nigeria needs a domestic crude intervention stock of about 1 million barrels per day that is delinked from OPEC quota. And this today, the situation in the Middle East today, is a validation of that argument. We need domestic crude intervention stock dedicated to domestic refiners for such situations as this, guaranteed supply. Because when you have a situation where your major refiner is having to import crude and is subject to international prices, is subject to freight costs that has doubled for the routes that it mostly imports from, South America and North America, is definitely going to translate that cost to the Nigerian market because the government is not providing him with any incentive or subsidy anywhere.
All right. There's so many other levels to touch. For instance, what are we missing, as a result of continuing crude oil theft? And there are reports that crude oil theft have been reduced from 100,000 barrels per day to about 9,600 barrels per day. Why have we still not reached 2.2 million, that was achieved under former President Goodluck Jonathan? And so should we have been gaining more as a result? And should there be, other balances that could have been reinvested to dedicated domestic crude, as you have talked about? But we must anchor at this point and hope for another time where we can explore all the other areas to this conversation. Mr. Billy Gillis-Harry is the President, Petroleum Products Retail Outlets Owners Association of Nigeria. And Mr. Kelvin Emmanuel is an economist and an oil and gas expert. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming on the Morning Brief.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for having me.
We'll take a moment now. When we return, it will be time to talk national security. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Let's stay on national conversation. This time we're talking national security. Bringing our guest, Yahuza Getso is an intelligence and security consultant, joining us virtually, as well as Captain Bishop Johnson, retired U.S. Army veteran. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Captain, let me come to you before I go to Mr. Getso, who has...
Good morning.
Mr. Getso, I'll come to you in just a moment for your insight as to what we're dealing with. It is no longer news that these bandits or these terrorists, whichever name we choose to call them, but I choose to call all of them terrorists in that sense, have demonstrated to the state that they are up for this battle for as long as it lasts. We heard the president the other day during the fast talking about the fact that we will not surrender to terror. And that is because of the pressure that these terrorists are putting on us as a country, literally assault on the state. Captain Bush, when you look at the numbers in terms of death toll from 2025, in fact, in 2024, the numbers were a bit tapered. In 2024, the numbers were a bit tapered. In 2025, it escalated and keeps escalating even further. Now, military bases, forward bases are being attacked. We're beginning to have, or we've been having what you call wartime numbers in times when we don't have real war. At least it's asymmetric in this sense. From where you sit and what you know, what are we not doing well? Are we just talking without acting, or the intelligence is not sufficient, or our capacity is inadequate, or the men are poorly motivated? What exactly is happening?
Yeah, good morning, and thank you for having me. I think it's a combination of all the things that you have so eloquently stated. We're ill-equipped, we're ill-prepared. We have not really sit down and taken some time to try to understand what is happening to us. What are the remote causes? What are the immediate causes? Who is involved? if you look at what is going on in northern Nigeria with respect to these bandits and terrorists, which you rightly pointed out, I have long stated that they're terrorists. You will discover that it's a combination of factors, right? We have a very porous border where you have all these poor militant Islamic countries that are surrounding Nigeria, and you have people pouring in from those countries to a place they consider El Dorado, just like those in Latin America consider the United States El Dorado and the place that when they get there, their life will change. This is how Nigeria is viewed in these countries, right? If you come into Nigeria and you are able to kidnap people, they'll pay you ransom, and your life and the lives of your whole entire family is changed. So you have people, you have their top government officials, you have business people, all of them are partaking in this commercialized criminal enterprise. So you have a porous border. You also have mineral resources that all of them are all after, including some foreigners who are providing them with the technical expertise to mine all these mineral resources. And all of them have come together with the host communities, some of them, to create this upheaval of insecurity around these mineral sites. What is driving this banditry in northern Nigeria is Nigeria's mineral resources. And so the kidnappings you see is a diversionary tactic for us to focus on banditry while some individuals are busy mining our mineral resources without following legal framework, without the state benefiting from the mineral resources that he has been endowed with. So anywhere you have illicit mining or illicit crude oil production, whatever it is, anywhere that is illicit anything, you can look to Mexico and Colombia and see what is happening there because they have all these illicit things as well. So anywhere you have these illicit activities, there's always going to be insecurity in those areas because the major actors will all be battling for control of territory, who is in charge of this and who is in charge of where. And so in so doing, they will create this atmosphere of insecurity. Unfortunately, our country has not really been prepared to deal with it. We've been dealing with it in a haphazard manner. We respond, we withdraw, we pull back, we go forward, and we just been dealing with this thing in a very haphazard manner. For us to curtail this thing, we have to look at this problem holistically. Start from the border and work our way back into the country. Eliminate external factors so that we know those who are within our country who are terrorizing us. And then we can adequately deal with the internal factors at the same time.
Okay, so let me come to you. I'm actually looking at the data by Armed Conflict Location and Event Data Project. I'm trying to get to that particular data they talked about in Benin Republic, in Niger and Nigeria borderlines, looking at the militant violence and resulting death spikes. So I'm looking here from 2022 all the way to 2025. It's gone up by almost 200%. Number of attacks gone up by almost 1,000%. Those are the numbers. So if you look at from 300 to like 1,000, okay, that should be about 700 or so percent. So you can see the report was trying to triangle Benin Republic, Niger, and Nigeria borderlines in trying to find out why these expansionist tendencies by this militant group continue to persist. Where I'm going to with my question, the other day we saw 100 boots on the ground from the United States based on the back and forth over genocide or no genocide. But it looks like, and when questions were asked, are they coming to be engaging, the fight itself? They said, no, it's just equipment and training. But has that really changed anything? Because we're still seeing escalation. Abductions happened the other day in Borno State where about 300 children, women, and all of that were taken away. Mr. Getzel, that's for you.
Yes, good morning once again. The reality is, yes, of course, the trajectory of the security challenges that we have in the country have a lot of influence or factorial influence related to our neighborhood, the border between Nigeria and Niger, the border between Nigeria and Benin, Nigeria and Cameroon, Nigeria and Chad, and even by extension, even the far countries, that Nigeria have a trans-Saharan trade activity. Yeah, yes, of course, we may have the equipment and gadgets, but the question is, are we really holding ourselves accountable and holding our personnel accountable and responsible for utilizing those equipment and so on and so forth? And what efforts are we making in order to checkmate the activities of trans-Sahara trade activities, the forest border as discussed by Bishop, and looking inwards, who are really, yes, of course, the only area that I may have a little disagreement with Bishop is the fact that Nigeria have not known the root cause analysis. We know the root cause. We know who are the guys, and Nigeria have the capacity and ability to deal with the situation. But intentionally, we are refusing as a country to address the key issues inward and the key issues related to our bilateral relation, and also the key issues of identifying and addressing and checkmating the border activities, as well as looking into the logistics activities. Because when you look at many of the arguments from some of the personnel that were the information was generated from some of the personnel in the field, is the fact that they're not being even provided with the right logistics and equipment, even though Nigeria may have those things, even though the commands and units may have those gadgets and equipment, but they are not being provided. So as far as I'm concerned, there is a very good relationship. When you look at the total number that are being killed, either the personnel, when you look at the northeastern part of the country, the focus of the criminals are now changing the outlook of their operations, whereby they are focusing on institutional attack as well as the community displacement. When you look at the north central and northwestern part of the country, the Lakurawa are focusing on institutional attack, whereby they are trying to dismantle the custom base, the immigration base, the police station, divisional police stations, and so on and so forth, even though there are a lot of facts and evidence-based that those Lakurawa are providing support to some of the illegal miners among the Chinese and so on and so forth. If you take the case of Kebbi local government in Sokoto State, neighboring 4 local governments of Kebbi State, that of Bagudu, Kokobese, Meyema, and Jiga, those 4 political wards at the eastern part of the southern part of Kebbi local government of Sokoto State, and looking at all the other activities of the criminals here and there, you realize that these criminals, even though some of the borders that we consider as a silent borders, that is looking at the many major markets of Jigawa and some other states that we feel they are peaceful, those borders are really contributing seriously into the influx of arms and ammunition and other illegal activities. So looking at all these things, we can say that we have a combined challenges that we are intentionally refusing to address. It's not that we don't know the problem. It's not that we don't have the intelligence. It is not that we don't have the right information. It's not that we don't have the right personnel. Yes, of course, we may not have adequate number, but the number we have can perform and can do wonders if at all we are checkmating and holding people accountable and responsible for what they are assigned for, or the responsibility they are shoulders on them. But because of our inability to check the system, our inability to hold people accountable, our inability to handle complicit and compromises and corrupt practices within the cycle, and our inability to, our incapability or undermining the contribution and the attributes of our forest border, negligence in handling those issues, even those we have found wanting, we have not been able to handle them well, so that could have served as a deterrence for others to learn their lessons. Yes, of course, our military are doing very well. I commend them. I saw them. I know I have been
before we begin to commend them. Before we begin to commend them, there's a whole lot of work to be done, Dr. Getso, because it appears as if we're getting fatigued by the numbers. There is no more alarm, that is, responding to these numbers. When we hear 100 women kidnapped in Goshe, Borno, 25 were killed in Adamawa, 100 were killed in Woro, it appears as if it's being normalized. But you have highlighted a very important pattern of attacks by Lakrawa, and we hope that the security agents are taking note of this and strategizing accordingly. But let me come to you now, Captain Bish. You were talking earlier about acting based on what we know. And speaking of what we know, the very popular Sheikh Hamad Gumi, in a most recent interview, is telling Nigerians that the Nigerian government knows the terrorists by name and by location. And when he goes to interact with the bandits, he doesn't go alone. He goes with security agents, and I believe he mentioned the police and the military. Now, don't forget that this is the same Sheikh Hamad Gumi that under this current administration was said to have been invited for questioning. I believe the Minister of Information said at that time that no one is above the law. How are you processing this revelation by Sheikh Hamad Gumi? And based on the invitation that the administration extended to him in 2024, what questions should we be asking the federal government?
Okay, yeah, let me first and foremost correct one thing that my co-panelists had raised. Now, when I talked about the remote cause of this problem, it's not that the government doesn't know about the remote or the root cause of this problem, but the thing is that they are not dealing with those root and the remote causes. We've only been doing taking reactionary measures. Anytime people are kidnapped, we go and negotiate for their release. If there's an ongoing attack, we go and respond. We're not preempting these things the way we are supposed to preempt them. And apart from that, I agree with almost every other thing that he has said. Now, let me come to the question that you just asked now. You see, Gumi is not the first person who has admitted to the fact that the government is aware of all these people. When the Erufai was the former governor of Kaduna State, he also mentioned that they know these people. And even after that, there have been some government officials, even in this present administration, that have admitted that they know these people. And since this government has been on board, there has been negotiations that led to release of people who were kidnapped. So such negotiations cannot go on successfully without knowing who was responsible for the kidnapping. So it's not that we don't know the people behind this problem. The thing is that we have been prepared, or either intentionally, as my co-panelists have said, complicit in trying to deal with this problem. Maybe because of the people behind it, it could be the most powerful people in the country, probably more powerful than the president, that we have not been able to deal with them. Now, I take contrary position on those who are calling for this Gumi guy to be arrested, to be prosecuted. I don't think that that's what we need to do with him. I think what we need to do with him is what the government has done with him. Invite him in so that maybe he can provide us more intelligence information. He has been very, very unequivocal that the government knows the people behind these attacks. And I can't agree any less with him. The government cannot say they don't know these people. If they don't know these people, so why do we have all these intelligence agencies in our country? What is their job? What's the job of the DSS? What are the jobs of the NIA? How is it that these people can be carrying out these attacks successfully on regular basis, and these intelligence agencies don't know about them or haven't done anything or taken any measure to identify who is behind all these attacks? I would find it very, very difficult to believe, and I know that most Nigerians will also find it very, very difficult to believe that we have not been able to identify this group of people that have continued to terrorize our country for nearly 2 decades now. It's not possible. So the government knows them.
But
they know how to locate them.
Captain Bish, if you say that we shouldn't, you disagree with those calling for his arrest, isn't there a danger in that, seen in normalizing relations with bandits? normalizing interaction with bandits. These are bandits who are responsible for killing, maiming, throwing families into sorrows. They are the ones responsible directly and indirectly for the state of displacement that we have. So isn't there a danger in a subtle endorsement for the lifestyle and the heinous evil trade of the bandits?
The man is a Nigerian citizen. He is entitled to every right and privileges that are enjoyed by every other Nigerian citizen. That is his own opinion, his freedom of expression. It doesn't mean that the government must grant amnesty to bandits. The area I am coming from is that this man has a lot of intelligence information on these bandits. And so instead of throwing him into jail, I think that the best thing we have to do is to get that intelligence information from him. These are how intelligence agencies work. I was a member, I was a military intelligence officer. If you get a lead or there is somebody, you know, even if DI and CIA does that, they recruit the baddest of the society to work with them so that they will be able to use them to take down some other people. They will help you and give you all the intelligence information. That
Captain, if I may comment.
Yes.
My apologies because of time. Let's get to Mr. Getso so can get his word in before we go. My concern is about policy posturing and direction, Mr. Getso. So I'm going to use two people. The other day we saw a video, some videos were circulating online about the NSA. Well, more like saying that the terrorists were, you know, brothers or something of that. I don't want to quote since I don't want to be quoted on that. But what I'm saying is that sometimes it looks like within the same system, within the security architecture, some persons have conciliatory approach. Conciliatory approach talking about, you know, this rehabilitation, repentance, and all of that. But if you look at the former chief of defense, who is now the minister of defense, his position is not conciliatory. His position is clearly using the might of the state. So do you think sometimes that the discordant posturing in terms of whether we go conciliatory or by might with the people in charge of our security is part of why we're dealing with the problem we're dealing with, and we're not getting the kind of results we should be getting?
I don't really believe in anything reconciliatory because as far as I'm concerned, that is a deceit. That is a cheat. So if government have any policy talking on that, I think we are being very unsincere and very kind of being disappointed with the people we are leading. Simply because years before Ahmed Gumi talked about that all these criminals are known, I had mentioned it at various interviews I had at the national and international level, and through the articles I presented at various conferences and so on and so forth. So I believe waiting for any reconciliation or any rehabilitation, I think we are deceiving ourselves. The reality is there are some people probably within the system. I mentioned a word and I'm going to repeat it, and that's my position. And I'll repeat it to anybody, either eyeball to eyeball or on any discussion, that Nigerian government is intentionally refusing to address insecurity in Nigeria. It's intentional. We are refusing because we know the complicits, we know the criminals, we know their locations. You can profile them by polling units, by political ward, by local government constituency, by state assembly constituency. I have made a submission to 9th, to 8th, 9th, and 10th assembly, providing some relevant profiling information about all those who are terrorizing most areas of the northwestern part of the country and north central part of the country. And to some extent, in recent time, I was in 48 local government in 7 states of most of the northeastern part of the country. And I believe that most of the formations and locations of the Boko Haram and their hideouts, and even the so-called mountains, whatever, can be profiled and can be handled. So I think we need to be very, very careful. We need to be honest and sincere. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu promised Nigerians that his government is going to provide security. Now I'm sending a reminder to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and those he has assigned with the responsibility of managing the security to revisit that policy and also revisit many of his statements. I don't think we are really being honest and sincere when we are talking about reconciliation. The policy should go direct in handling whosoever is holding arms illegally. Because as far as you cannot manage the armed proliferation and you cannot manage the arms in the wrong hands, you will never get it right. So you can't have any dialogue session. Okay. You can't. There is no way you can have any dialogue or any reconciliation with someone to go back to the forest with his arm, AK-47 and the rest of it. The mistake made by Katsina State government to northern Nigeria and to Nigeria as a whole, the gap created for that 3 months so-called dialogue, it has created and given an enabling opportunity for these guys to have possessed and be able to procure and purchase massive arms that they were unable to purchase and procure in the last 10 days before the so-called reconciliation and dialogues. So are we really talking sense? We are empowering these guys, and we have a record that even some governors are even providing logistic support. I have evidence, I have records, whereby one of the governors provided 25 motorcycles to vigilante and also 25 motorcycles to the criminals after the so-called dialogue here and there. So we have all these issues. We must be able to hold people accountable. Catch me everywhere. I said it, I'm repeating myself. That we are intentionally refusing.
Yes, Mr.
Because
just
we
a
know
moment.
where the head of the nail is, but rather we are hitting the wood.
Mr. So you made an allegation. Which government is that you're talking about?
Well, when it is very necessary, I'm ready to mention it. I don't think it's something that we discuss at the public. But I know if the governor is watching me, or if the commissioner from the state is watching me, or if other people who are in the state who knows what happens, they know. And when it is necessary, I can be able to provide the information.
You know why I was doubling down, Mr. Get? So if we are trying to kill these people, because that's the right thing to do, kill them. They are killing our people. That's why we have our army, except the surrender. And you have information to the fact that government is giving them a means of mobility. The people deserve to know, don't you think so?
Yes, of course. The people deserve to know. But maybe since it was not done in the public, it's something that they have done, but we have the information and I have evidence. And I believe in what I'm saying, and I'm repeating myself. And I'm ready to say it before any other person, because I have the proven evidence. And I believe it happens. And some of the security managers in the country, they know there are some of the things that are being done. We know if at all we are really...
We'll get to the root of it.
We are intentionally refusing to handle it.
You've made very strong points and strong allegations. Government unwilling to tackle this, which is why my question is apt around conciliatory and might in this sense, which is discordant tone, giving us disastrous results. Yahuza Getso is an intelligence and security consultant. Thank you, sir, for coming, as well as Captain Bishop Johnson, retired U.S. Army veteran. Thank you, sir, for coming as well. We appreciate you both. From national security, we'll go local to what has played out in Amasiri and Osaida community. We've had Amasiri people, and then we want to have Osaida people who haven't spoken since this incident in Ebonyi State. So let's get to hear from their side as to what is playing out with the killing that happened in their community that led to some decisions by the state government to act swiftly on Amasiri communities. Stay with us.
Welcome back. And so our next conversation is still related to security, but also has a dimension to a boundary dispute between Amasiri community and also Eda on the one hand and Okporojo communities in Ebonyi State. Recall that when we had the representatives of Amasiri, they had accused the governor of being high-handed and of course imposing a curfew in their community, closing schools and health centers in their community without investigating the matter arising from the killing of about 3 persons in Oso Eda community in Ebonyi State. We now have the representatives of Oso Eda who are here on the program to speak to some of the allegations and the background to the conflict between Amasiri and Oso Eda. We have them right here on the program. And joining us is Mr. George Ukpai, who is the chairman, Eda Clan Peace Committee on Land. He joins us virtually. We also have right here in our Lagos studio, Mr. Ikenna Emewu, is the secretary, Unzuko Eda Assembly BOT, I believe that's Board of Trustees. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming on the program.
Thank you. Good morning.
So I'm going to start with Mr. Ewu, who is right here in our Lagos studio. I wonder if you watched that particular edition with the Amasiri representatives. They did give us a background to the conflict in Ebonyi. They said the conflict didn't start today and that they have documents to prove that Amasiri are the owners of the land right from colonial times. And so the conflict has resurfaced time and again with killings of their own people. And in fact, there are cases lodged with the police by the Amasiri community alleging killings. So what's your own explanation about the conflict?
The explanation, I agree with Amasiri, is old. But what they have been saying are all lies. It's an old conflict. There is a land boundary between Eda and Amasiri. Eda is in Eda local government area. Amasiri is in Afikpo local government area. Common boundary. There have always been disputes, especially when farming season starts, over whose land ends where. Now, at a point, Amasiri started pressing claims that Eda has no spot around there. There's a town after Eda in Ivo local government where they claim, and another one in Onhafia local government of Abia State. They claim that they are the people they have boundaries with. And with such claims, means Eda doesn't exist in the geography of that area entirely. So the issue with Amasiri is annexation and expansionism, not about where is the boundary between Eda at the Oso and Okbojo axis, where is it? But that we don't exist. Now going back, it has been an old case. It has been resolved, there have been peace moves to resolve them. And they are talking about colonial documents. I don't know where they got that, because we are the people that should be discussing colonial documents, because Eda has always been an entity recognized by the government. From the 1930 Waddington Commission of the colonial government that described where and where belonged to Eda. In 1954, the Eda County Council was created, also including this Okbojo, one of the 72 villages of Eda, is indicated as part of Eda. In 1982, Sam Mbakwe, the governor of old Imo State, where we belonged, created the Eda local government area and still indicated also and Okbojo as part of also as belonging to Eda and all the areas around there. In 1991, so after the when the civilian government was eroded off in 1983, December 31, that was phased out. In 1991, IBB created new local governments. This South, this was our own. That Eda local government of today was called Afikpo South local government. And that creation also showed where it belonged to, Afikpo South. In 2023, March 16 precisely, President Buhari signed amendment to the Constitution into law, and the name reverted from Afikpo South to Eda local government area, still delineating where it belongs to where, including Okbojo and the entire Oso Eda. Now,
that was in 1955.
I'm talking of, I mentioned 1930, 1954, Edda County Council. All these were in the colonial era. Then I talked about 1982, the creation of Edda local government area by Governor Sam Bakwe of Old Imo State, where we were then. Then I talked about 1991, the creation of what was the revival of that old Edda local government, then called Afikpo South local government area.
Let's take it to your colleague on the other end, Mr. Iken Eme, who is the Secretary, Nzokweda Assembly. Mr. Eme,
I am Iken.
Okay,
yeah,
okay. Mr.
Okpai.
Okpai, my apologies. That is the chairman of Edda Clan Peace Committee on land. Mr. Okpai, let's come to you in a moment, because this issue is about boundary. This issue is about, he's expanded, he's talked about annexation, expansion, and literally not recognizing that those people exist. Is it a similar story you have? And what exactly, because at the end of the day, we can debate this back and forth. What exactly is the opportunity for reconciliation and giving closure to this particular issue?
Thank you for having me. Before I dive into the issue of opportunity for reconciliation, let me just make a few comments on the background of this problem. In addition to what Iken has said, I want to add the Colonial Intelligence Report published in 1933. Colonial Intelligence Report number NEA, file number NEA 106, published in 1933, clearly shows the boundary that the present Edda and Oporojo, as it is presently the hotspot now, showed the boundary that Oporojo Niega has with Amasri. That intelligence report, issued by the district officer of the Denogoja province in 1933, shows that Amasri on the west has boundary, Edda on the west has boundary with Akezi. Edda also on the east has boundary with Amasri, Afikpo, and then on the north, Edda has boundary with Obosi. On the south, Edda has boundary with Ohafia and Igboro. Is clearly stated on page 5, paragraph 12 and 13 of that report. Is clearly stated. It gave the land size of Amasri, which is stated to be 32 square miles, which is equivalent to 81.88 square kilometers, with Edda being shown as 90 square miles, which is equivalent to 233.47 square kilometers. So how come Amasri is claiming that Edda does not exist? By way of founding, let me just add very quickly.
I think you've laid, my apologies. My apologies, Mr. Okpai. I think you've laid your position consolidating that of your brother here. Let's go, because of time, let's go to that question I did ask. There has to be a way forward. Because there is no way forward, people have died. Places have been ransacked. Mr. Okpai, that's for you.
Yes, thank you very much. The way forward is this, and I'm happy that Amasri has started well. Amasri has now dropped their claim that they don't have any boundary with Edda. That is Oporojo. Having done that, the way forward now is to go into proper tracing and delineation and, of the boundary. And I would like to report, as we speak now, the Honorable Commissioner for Land Dispute Resolution has invited us to a meeting this morning to now begin to dialogue on how to properly demarcate and delineate that boundary. That's the way forward which we accept, and the government has already given that direction.
Let's quickly address some other issues that also are at the heart of the conversation. The Amasri people say they're not responsible for the killings, that in fact the Oso Edda is also in conflict with 4 other communities, and that the governor is making conclusions without proper investigation. I'd like you to respond to that, Mr. Emewu.
That's an absolute lie.
But are you in conflict with other communities beside Amasiri?
None. Now, let me explain to you. Amasiri is rather the one in conflict with Afikpo. There's a place called Government College Afikpo, built in 1952. Amasiri had to go and plant a billboard there in the heart of Afikpo, that is their boundary with Afikpo. Amasiri people killed a man, beheaded him on January 26 from Akbohan. That is one of their neighbors.
That's an allegation.
We have the facts.
Because they are saying...
Do you have evidence?
They are saying it's... That's what
we have the facts. The government have the facts.
I'm not disputing your position. I'm saying that's the allegation.
But have investigations been carried out?
Yes.
Is anybody being prosecuted?
Thank you. Yes, people are being prosecuted. 2 traditional rulers from Amasiri, because they are complicit. It's a community thing. It wasn't like few individuals in Amasiri committed an offense and the governor moved against the community. It is a community thing. We are privy to a group, a WhatsApp group that has 967 members where they plan this thing. Sorry, sir, I'm coming.
I don't want to cut your thoughts because of time. When you're laying very heavy allegation. There's a difference between people, miscreants or elements carrying out an act, and then you say a community.
A community.
So why would a community want to kill the other community?
Thank you, because they are into annexation. I have the evidences. They send these voice notes in their dialect.
You'll send it to us, right?
I will.
Okay.
I have 85 of them. They send these messages in their dialect, urging their people to kill. Some of them admitted it in those voice notes that I am one of the people that killed in Okporojo.
And the person is Amasiri?
For real, it is a dialect.
So has a prima facie, have they been arraigned before a court of law?
There are people being arraigned right now. There are people on the run. Some of them, one of them, they call him Odubodu. In the voice message, he had been harboring 11 somewhere. Some of the attackers, they managed to scurry out to ferry out to Cameroon.
But it's been weeks since those killings took place.
Yes.
And as we speak, there are reports that the curfew is still in place in Amasiri community. Schools are still shut. Hospitals are still shut.
Yeah.
Is it fair for the innocent in Amasiri to be, tried and made to bear the punishment for a few who perpetrated the killings?
Prior to this, the government of Ebonyi State gave a mandate for a secondary school to be built in Okporojo. It was built. Amasiri people destroyed it.
That's another allegation.
The children of Okporojo have not been going to school in the past 5 years.
We are totally out of time.
Do 2 wrongs make a right, Mr. Emewu?
No. Let me also ask you this question. For instance, the land belongs to you. Do you use bloodshed to take the land, or you go to court?
But what you're saying is still an allegation.
Just hold on.
It would be nice to have this conversation.
No, because we don't have time. We don't have time.
I'm just saying that, to have the Amasiri community and the also people together to have this conversation, such that there can be an opportunity for response. But we must thank you very much,
But they have already given the allegations here too.
Well, I want to say, but I'm just saying to bring everyone together.
They never, the governor of the state never took any hasty action against them.
Judge Ikenna Emewu, Secretary Nzukwa Eda Assembly, BOT Chair, Judge Okpai, Chairman Eda Clan Peace Committee on Land. Thank you, gentlemen. It's an ongoing conversation. And that's it on the program. Thank you for your time and company. We appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Of course, Sunrise Daily is up next, so stay with Channels Television. We'll be back again tomorrow. I am Bukola Toka. Bye for now.